And welcome to the Access SQL class, week number 8 of 9. So we're winding down here. And I want to see if I can start pulling together all of those final things to as much as possible wrap things up, although most of the wrap up will be next week. But I want to make sure that I get into all of the parts that are necessary for you to have a good understanding of the way SQL works. I would say in general, there are obviously a lot of additional things that I've touched on over the weeks that I really have not gone into and probably won't go into. So things like indexes, so you can use SQL to, for example, create a table, create a primary key, create an index, update a field, change the size of it, all of these things that you're typically not going to do, but every once in a while you need to. So I'm not going to touch really on most of those things. So I wanted to make sure you fully understand the core things that you would likely do in a SQL world. And that's why I spent almost the entire time working on selects, because the assumption is that somewhere along the way, you'll put data into the database, but once it's in there, you don't do anything with it except query it. So you start looking at it from one table, you start looking at it from another table, you start looking at bits and pieces of that, you start doing calculated fields, you start grabbing pieces from across two tables, you have to figure out how do you join them and bring those together. How do you do groupings and how do you remove duplicates? So all of those various things that we've done over the weeks, sorting and filtering. So all of those core things. And because you're doing those over and over and over again in any particular job, I wanted to make sure to spend most of the time doing that. And of course, last week we started looking into the last things that you'll do also somewhat often, but not nearly as much. I'd say selects, I think I may have mentioned, is probably 80 to 95% of what you do in SQL. And then the other small percent is maybe things like, how do I insert data in? And maybe a little more often, how do I update data? And probably much less often, how do I delete data? And that's why this document that I've referred you to here has a lot of variations of the word select, and then a few of the other ones. There's your insert, your update, your delete. And I guess while I'm here, let me quickly talk about the remaining things in here. So there's 3 more things on this page. So there's this create table. So if you're using Access, you'll probably never use this. But if you ever go to another database, it's possible you'll use it depending on what your role is and where you're going to be managing things. But even with those, a lot of the database tools have become easier to the point where you don't even need this. So this almost becomes something that you'd only use if you're doing some kind of programming where you need to use some program to create tables, possibly something that maybe you have to create a table every month. You know, you're doing some kind of management of data and you want to store the month's data, and next month you want to create a new version of the table. So you'd go and do a create table. So the syntax or the command to do this is not all entirely here. It does get very complicated because, as I said, you need to identify what fields are going to go in there, what is the data type for each one of those fields? Do you want to do anything special with the fields, like index them so that I can sort them more quickly? Do I want to add primary keys and foreign keys and all those other things? So those are structural things that are done at the table level. So the keyword that starts it is create table, and then a table name. And then in parentheses, you'll put fields and data types. But again, there's a lot more pieces to this, but it's really one command with a lot of different variations. Sort of like the select, it's one command with a lot of variations. And again, the difference is select you'll use over and over and over again, create table a lot fewer times. The other end of that, I created a table. You might say, well, I want to delete a table. Well, the problem with using the word delete is restricted to deleting data within a table, not deleting the structure. So because of that, I don't think they wanted to use the word delete because it becomes harder for the computer to figure out, wait, are you trying to delete something related to tables or something related to data? So they decided to use the word drop instead. So I've created a table and I want to drop it off the database. And I think this is the basic structure of it. So drop table, which will basically go in there and remove it. And any data that's in there will also be gone. There's also one more, sort of tangentially related. It's not exactly the same. It's not managing the structure of the table. So it's more of a delete function. So this one, the delete, basically says go to a particular table and remove some of the data according to some criteria. So your where clause. If you leave out the where clause, it's going to take out everything. And in an Access database, you're probably not going to have very large database tables. You know, you may have 5, 10, 15,000 entries in one, and it may even get a little bigger than that, but probably it's not going to get tremendously large. Whereas if you were, say, the IRS, you're talking millions of entries in various tables. And so what happens if you try to delete everything is you would say delete from table. And by the way, Access does allow you to put a field list here. You can say delete star from table. You can say delete some field, but it's just going to delete the entire record anyway. But other ones, I think I was looking last week and I saw LibreOffice does not allow you to put anything in here. It's just delete from table and then a where clause if you want to put it in. So this is optional, but it's sometimes not allowed in certain environments. So be aware of that. And honestly, it doesn't really mean anything because you're not deleting fields, you're deleting rows. So anyway, if you want to delete everything, you go and you say delete from table name. And when you run it, it will remove all entries. If you're dealing with 10, happens really fast. 1,000, still pretty fast. 10, 15,000 in, say, Access, it might take 7, 8, 10 seconds, something like that, depending on your processor. So you kind of expect, okay, it might take a little bit of time. But if you start getting to much larger tables, you know, hundreds of thousands or millions of entries, you can see how that can take a long time. And if all you want to do is prepare things for, say, the new year, clear out the old data, replace it with the new data, you really don't want to wait that long. So they came up with another thing called truncate table. And the idea behind the truncate table is it goes and it removes all references to your data. And it's usually a near split-second process. So if you have 1 million records in there, you say truncate table, and a second later, it's ready to go. And you might wonder, well, how can it possibly do that? You know, if it's dealing with millions of records, how can it remove all of those? And the answer is the way that it internally manages tables. It doesn't actually store the data in the tables. What it has is the memory management on the disk is the table holds pointers that say your data is located over there, go find all the pieces over there. Basically, it creates a list of entries that say, go look over there and find the entries. And the idea behind the truncate table is it basically clears out that list. Or it may even do something simpler, which is I'm going to create a new entry. So think of it as being sort of a copy the container. You know, there's a box that holds a list of all the pieces. What I'm going to do is create a new box and then tell the table, point at the new box. And if you do that, suddenly the box is empty. Your old box is still there, but you're looking at the new box and, gee, there's no data in it. So that's the idea behind that. And I think what happens is behind the scenes, it then says, okay, now that I've done that, I can start cleaning that up in the background when you don't have to worry about it so much. And you can continue doing your work while I clean up things in the background, sweep out that and take out the trash and things like that. So I think that's how that primarily works. So I'm not even sure this one works in Access, but if you work at the larger databases, you will want to be able to do a truncate table in some cases. Okay, so that kind of wraps up all of these commands that we were looking at over the weeks. And let's get back over to here. I want to do a few more inserts, updates, and deletes, just to see how they work. And I want to do it from the perspective of LibreOffice. So usually I start with Access and then I go over to LibreOffice. I really didn't touch the LibreOffice last week, but if you were interested in both, you may have noticed that I did do the extra work after our class was done to make these things work. And I want to show you some of the differences. So let me actually retrieve the Access stuff. We'll kind of do a quick preview of what we did last week. So we were in week number 7. So we did a few queries, like query some city information from country with an ID of 3. We run it, and there was only one entry for that. And if you're not sure of that, I guess you can always go look at what we did last week. This one, we did it by name. So go find me the one with Brazil and take the Brazil and go find a corresponding ID with that. Go find one with the code 52 in the country table. And then that turned out to be, actually, maybe I'll show you. It's still a little abstract, but in the country table, we found the one that had a 52. We picked up the ID, and then we used the ID to jump back over to the city table. Again, the data doesn't really make sense for that. You wouldn't do something like that. And we'll see later today that there is something that will tie some of this back together in a real way. This was just to gather some information. I wanted to find a number that I knew was in the other table, and I knew IDs would be there. But I'm looking for either this piece over here and grabbing this, or this piece over here to grab this. And then we went over and said, okay, now show me what you have in the other table using that ID. Okay, so that's that one. We did a few more variations of that. We ended up with a 33 in this case, brought back Los Angeles. This one was with a city ID. And I guess we actually did it with a collection of entries in this one. So we said, go bring back where there's a few different entries. And I think we said, go find all of those that have a country ID that matches a city number and show me those countries. And if you want to look at the SQL, it's basically a select within a select. So we did a select that grabbed the information and brought it back over here. So those are the first 5. So let me show you what this looked like in LibreOffice. So that's this one. So I go run it, and not sure why it puts it off screen. So let's run the same ones here. So I ran this one and I got 3 Delmar and CA. Notice it says state ID though. Ran it in LibreOffice and I got 3 Delmar and 6. Why did I get 6? Because that's the actual ID. And here, Access is actually hiding the fact that the state ID is number 6. We can go check real quick by going here, and we see CA is number 6. So if you wanted to do that over here, you'd have to create an extended query that takes 2 tables, joins them together, and shows the state code. But that wasn't the goal. The goal was to just bring back the record and the corresponding information. The other one here is you could actually hide this by changing the original structure in the table. Probably will yell at me if I do this, but that's okay. So I've shown this before. If you go to the lookup on, is it the country? This one where the column widths, it's hiding the first piece because it's a 0 and showing the next piece. And so it's hiding the ID and showing the country name. Oh, interesting. It's actually got a third piece that it's just not bringing back. Okay, anyway, so that's the idea. So if you wanted to change this, I guess this should actually be done at the city table. I showed you the state table, but the same idea. So you'd go here, and if you actually wanted to see what the ID was, you can just remove that 0 from that width column. All right, so that's number 1. Let's go to number 2. And number 2 was using Brazil instead. So let's go here. Let's go run this query. And I guess I'll show you the queries themselves also. You can see it's bringing back the same thing. Apparently Nevada is entry number 32, so it showed 32. If we look at the SQL for this one, it's select the city ID, the name and the ID of the state from the table city where the city ID is equal to this select statement. And over here, actually I need to reopen this a different way. It doesn't let you look at the SQL unless you go into edit mode. So I have to go and edit in SQL view. And where did you go? You decided to jump off screen again. And so what we got was basically the same thing. Not multiple lines like this, but you can make it do that. So select the city ID, city ID. I guess we actually don't need this part. I think what I did is I copied this, I pasted it over here, saved it, and when I did, closed it and reopened it, it tried to format it in its own version where it likes field names and table names to be in double quotes. Anyway, so there's your city ID, city ID, city name, state ID, state ID. Put this on the next line so they sort of match. From TBL city, where city ID equals, there's a select statement from and a where and a Brazil. And so you can see it's basically the same here. Why is this single quotes? Because for single quotes, you're referencing text. Again, in LibreOffice, when you're dealing with double quotes, it means a field or a table. Single quotes is a piece of text. That's why I've been trying to reinforce that when you do this over here in Access, it's better to use single quotes. It's the proper way, but Access does allow you to put double quotes, and it does not use double quotes around your field names. Okay, let's see. This likes to hide somewhere back here. Let's see, this one there. Okay, so that was that one. And how do I run it? There's this little green check mark. And there's that 5 in the Las Vegas, that when I run it over here, 5 in Las Vegas. Okay, and let's go on to number 3. Basically, it's going to be the same thing. Close this, not save it. Edit in SQL view and run it. And we can see same information again. CA, when you go to the state table, is ID number 6. So it shows it over here. When we look at the SQL view for this, I should shrink this a bit so I can see both. You can see basically they're the same, except the select statement in parentheses is a little different. So it's using the double quotes around these. All right, that's it for that one. Let's go on to the 4th one and view that in SQL view, run it, take a look. 33 Los Angeles and CA. Apparently this one I used the wrong number here somewhere. It picked up a number 5 instead of a number 6. There might be a slight discrepancy between the pieces of data in the database. But we look at the SQL view. And so we see, again, the real piece that's what we're concerned about, what's bringing back the data is that, and they do look the same. Let me take a look and see why Australia is 5 in one and 6 in the other. That would be in the table here. And I go to country. And let's see, somehow we picked up Australia is 33. 33 in the, I think it's the city table, is Little Rock, which probably means if I go to the city table over here, yeah, the numbers are slightly off, not sure why. Let's see, 25 is Tucson, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Anchorage is 31. Oh, This one is 32 over here. This one ended up 33. Wonder if it lets me change it. Yeah, apparently I had accidentally deleted something in there, so the numbers were different. Notice it did let me change it over here. It would not let you change it in Access. And it is somewhat dangerous to be able to change things like that because it will, for example, change your queries. If I run it again, there, now it's Los Angeles and 6. Okay, let's see, on to the next one, and then we'll get to the more interesting ones. So close that. That's 5. This was 5. And so I need to open in SQL view, sorry. And run it. So this was one where it was bringing back multiple records. All the others were bringing back just one record. And here you can see it's actually bringing back the same information because of the way we're apparently combining tables. Let's take a look. And so, oh, I guess the country table itself, all just one. So all the pieces are there. And so we look over here and we see country code from where in parenthesis, parenthesis, parenthesis. And I hadn't mentioned it before, but in most database environments, if you want to add what's called a comment or a message inside your SQL, you can do that by putting a dash dash on, I don't know if you can put it at the end of a line, but in its own line, and it will basically create a little comment area where you can just put an arbitrary message. So I did actually put a message over here in this one, automatic conversion of city ID number to country code string. So I put that there specifically so I would remember to tell you about something. Last week, when we looked at this, we found that the city ID wasn't happy when we were trying to do country code in. So where country code in, so remember in is used for creating a list of entries and it's trying to match a list of entries. So it says, go bring me a list of entries from a select statement or other ways of doing that. Bring back a set of entries and match it against the country code. But since the country code is a string, defined in the database as a string, and we were selecting city IDs, which in the database are numbers, Access was not happy about that. So we basically forced it to become a number by converting it into a string. When I ran that over in LibreOffice, apparently it did the conversion automatically. So there was an automatic conversion of the city ID number into a string. So that allowed me to take this list of numbers and apply it against this text field. And it found the things that we were looking for. So again, every once in a while, you'll find that there are some differences between databases, the way they work. In some cases, there are no standards for things. So SQL allows the creator of the SQL version to define how they want to manage it. So Oracle will be a little different from SQL Server, which is different from Access, which is different from LibreOffice, which is different from MySQL in some areas, and very consistent in other areas. So this is one of those where you didn't have to do the conversion here. So this was good to go. Okay, I'll save it this time. Okay, so that was number 5. Let's go over to number 6. So here's 8, 9, 10, if you remember my numbering sequence, week 7, queries number 8, 9, 10. And we're looking for number 6. So this one will actually run if I double click it. So I want to go and open it in design view. And so what we got was this. And what this was going to do was insert an entry into the database. Let's take a look at this one here, the corresponding one. And you'll find this looks a little bit bizarre, and I'll explain it in a moment. But insert into the country table. And if you ignore the select here, just look at the orange piece right here. Insert into the country table the country name, country abbreviation, country code. That matches the first half of this. Where are you going to get that information from? In this case, I use specific values. And I showed that last week. You can use individual values. Ignore the fact that there are doubled single quote marks here. Just treat it as a single one for the moment. Whereas when we did that originally in Access, and then we came back in here, it changed it from values into a select statement because Access lets you do things like select an arbitrary value and another arbitrary value separated by commas and another one. So you're able to do that, but it doesn't like the word value. So it says, I'm going to just use selects over here. This one does let you use values. And the problem here is that LibreOffice does not let you run insert commands as selects. Here, Access does allow you to run insert commands as selects. Basically, it's a query. You're querying the database to perform a command, I guess. So if I try to run this, it does say you're about to do that. And it lets me run that. And so let me go back here. Let's see, this is insert into the country table. Quick look there. And we see country table. There is a Puerto Rico already with that information, but let's go run it again. We should see a second entry. I don't think we indexed it to prevent duplicates, so it should allow a new entry. So let's go run it. Yes, come back here, refresh. And aside from the fact that it skipped number 10, because Access must have had one of those previously that was removed, and so the next in line became 11. So it ran. I just said run the query, and it let me perform an action in inserting something into the database. Over here, if I were to try to do this, it would not let me do it. So what I did is a sort of a fancy thing that was just for display purposes. I made it so that there was a select statement that said, go select a piece of text and change the name of that, alias it, to this title. And so you'll see the actual data in here is insert into. It's not going to insert anything. This is just an arbitrary piece of text as far as it's concerned, with an arbitrary title, the name of the field. And it was doing that from the country table where country ID is 1. That's just because I wanted it to just do the select statement, but you have to apply it against a table somewhere. So I said, well, use this table, but I only wanted it to show one entry. And I knew there was an entry ID number 1. So this was sort of just playing a game to say, how can I show one entry of one piece of text? So the goal was really to just show this one piece of text and put some little message here that explained how you can actually run this command. So if I wanted to run this, let me copy that. And so the way we actually run this over here, let's actually go back here, do a quick look in the tables. The country table has Puerto Rico in the same place. So in order to run this, actually, let me do one more thing here. If I were to go and create a query, create it in SQL view, paste that insert into here, and try to run it, run the query, I get this message, which is why I couldn't do that. I had to do some trickery here. It says the given command is not a select statement. You can't use an insert as a query. So basically, this is not going to work. But I wanted to be able to put this in the database, and there seems to be no easy way to store that in the database anywhere. I can't save it. It keeps coming back and saying, no, you can't save this because it's not valid. So I figured, well, if I can just put this as a piece of text in a select statement, I can save it. But in order to make it where I could actually show it in a display area, I turned it into a valid select command. Okay, so now what we want to do is run this. And the way we run it is we close that. We don't go here. We have to go down to out to the main area and go to, as it says here, run this through the Tools SQL menu item. So not this Tools SQL, you'll see it's not in here. This is a query window. It's not there. You have to go to the main one. Tools, SQL, ... And here, I'll paste. And I can now execute this. Along the way, I can do some additional things like show the SQL or run the SQL command directly. I don't know if there's an indirect way of doing it, but it'll run it either way. If it's doing any kind of selects, do you want to see the output over here? Well, it's not doing a select, but I could show it anyway. And execute. And so it says this was successful. It actually took me a while to get all of these commands exactly right. So this would work, but I think I succeeded at it. So it actually tells you in the output, I updated one row, or in this case, added a row. So now if we go back to the table, and let's see, we refresh it, and you can see, sure enough, there's your Puerto Rico, and I guess this one also kept the same sequence of skipping number 10. So that's what I did with a bunch of these things. I actually went out of my way to create a select statement to let you see what the corresponding command is. Let's go on to the next one. So that would be this one, number 7. In design view, I don't need to save that, no. Okay, so number 7 in design view. Let's go to our queries. Number 7, SQL design view. And so what this one was doing was also an insert. So again, using that same idea, really the highlighted here matches what you have here. Go insert into the country table, 3 separate pieces, a country code, an abbreviation, and a name. How am I going to do this? I'm going to select 3 pieces of information. I'll take the state ID plus 100, also the state code, also the state name from the state table. So I'm going to do an insert based on a select, but not everything. I want to do it just for 3 entries. Okay, so if I were to go run this separately, let me copy that, create a new query here, close that, straight to SQL, paste. So select from the state table these 3 codes and show those pieces. And I go view and I see those are the IDs plus 100. Here's the state code, here's the state name. So what it's going to do is take those and then insert it. So we should have the same thing over here. You'll notice they're about the same. Oh, I didn't mention the doubled up quotes in here. They actually should be single quotes if you look over here. But because all of this is inside a quoted area, how do I tell it that it's not done with the command? So here it would look and say, oh, there's a quote. I must be done with the command. Oh, there's another quote. I don't know what to do with that. What happens is if you double up the quotes, it does something called escaping. It says, ignore the fact that this is a quote that might end this and treat it as a piece of text as a single quote. So putting 2 quotes together inside a quoted string says you treat it as a single quote. And you'll see that in a moment when I run it. If you look at the command over here, you'll see, where is my single quote? All the way over at the end. Okay, you won't let me scroll. Okay. Expand it again. And you can see over here, it does have single quotes in here. So even though I said put double quotes here, because it's a quote within a quote, that nullifies one of the quotes and turns it into a text quote, if you want to call it that. All right, so what this is going to do is insert 3 entries into the country table. So if I go run this one, go out, come back in, run it. About to add 3 rows, say yes. And when I go look at the country table, refresh. Oh, they're there already. So you can see these over here. What it is, it created the first column over here as the third entry, then these two other pieces, and it just put them with new IDs. Let's go run this command here, copy that, won't need that anymore, and run it in the main window, SQL, paste. If you got all of the syntax correct, with the double quotes around your tables and fields, single quotes around your pieces of text, and no quotes around your numbers, and execute. That did insert 3 rows. So I'll close there. I'll go back to the country table, refresh. Oh, again, I didn't need to refresh. So you can see those entries got added in there. Okay, so that was for number 7. Don't need that anymore. Don't need to keep the changes for that. All right, so that was a couple of inserts. Then we went on to updates. So let's go down to here. And let's go to design view. We updated the country and we set Canada to the country name. Let's see, I'm sorry. We found something that had a country name of California and changed it to Canada 2 and also CA-2. Well, we need to go to the country table. I'm not sure if we have that at this point. Oh, we do have this. So what it was doing was saying, go find California, which was here. Was it actually California? Yeah, so where the country name is that, and set the country name to Canada 2 and CA2. So I guess we had this one as California originally. And so it changed it to Canada 2, CA2, and 1007. Well, since we just inserted, we now have a new California, which should not really be a California because the country abbreviation is CA. So if we rerun this, we should see entry number 12 change to match entry number 7. So let me first go back over here. Let's take a look at this one. Expand that. And so again, this is just kind of doing the same thing. It's update the country table, set that field equal to that, and that field equal to that, where the country name is California. So basically just that over there. Copy that. And if I close this, go to Tools, SQL, and run that, we should see wherever it has the name California, it will change it to Canada 2. So I execute that. Looks like it succeeded. Let's go look in our country table. And what was California is now a second Canada 2. Let's go do the same over here. Our country table, we're looking at number 12 will be changing. So I'll go run this. Updating 1. Yes. Come back over here. And you can see it has now changed. So basically, not a lot of differences between these two so far. It's just in LibreOffice, in order to do this, you have to go into this tool command. Let's do, I guess, the last couple of remaining ones. Let's see, that was number 8. Let's take a look at number 9. So this one over here. This one over here. So there's your command. There's your command. Update the country table. Go find the ones with an abbreviation code of NM and change that to Mexico 2, MX2, and 235. Where is our NM? It's this one over here. It's the only one. That was not supposed to be New Mexico. We decided it was supposed to be Mexico. So it should match number 9 when we're done. Let's go open up our country table. So that one should change. We'll start with this one this time. Go this one here. Okay, I don't need that to be open, I guess. And run it. About to update one piece. Okay. We go to the country table and we see it changed from New Mexico to Mexico MX2 235. Let's go run it over here. The command we want to run is hidden back here somewhere. Here, copy that. Go to the SQL window, paste, execute. Looks like it succeeded. We go here, we refresh, and it's updated. Okay, a couple more to go. Let's take a look at number 10. Queries number 10. I'll just run it because what it will create is the SQL command for us. So this one's going to update the country table and set the country code to whatever the country ID is plus 1,000, but only where the length of the country code is greater than or equal to 3. Do we have any of those? Yes, we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4. So remember how the length command works. So the len or length command says go find this thing and check the length of it. How many characters is in it? So go check the country. See, the country code should be this one. So go find where the country code is. Yeah, I was looking at this. I was wrong. It's looking at the country code where the length of this, because this is a string, we can do a length on it. And it will say, okay, where are the ones greater than or equal to 3? And it will find these 3 and also these 3. And then change the ID so that matches whatever this ID is plus 1,000. So those 3 will actually get updated to whatever the current value is. They won't appear to change, but these 3 should change. Let's go and run it over here. So we're updating 6 records, the first 3 that won't actually change, and then the next 3. Come back over here, and you can see the 3 that I highlighted before are now updated. Over here, if I go look at the country table, as with the other one, these 3 will change. Did I accidentally realign? Yeah, I seem to have done something weird here, but anyway, I don't think we care too much. I think I accidentally just dragged this. Oh, and now it's going to do a few more. So ignore those. Just those 3 will change. Actually, all of them will change, but the last 2 we don't even need. Let's go run the command, which is, where's my command hiding? Here. Copy that. SQL. And let's go ahead and execute this. And it did update 8. And when we refresh, we'll see that it did all of the ones that were 3 or more characters. So these 3 remain intact, and it updated these 3. Again, those last 2 shouldn't even be there. They were, when I dragged and dropped, it said, oh, you must want to copy that. Okay, let's close that. And that was our last update. Then the last one was countries with duplicates. So let's go find that. I didn't make any changes to that query. So this, did we also have a delete in there? 11, yeah, we did. So we actually have 2 more. So let's go take a look at the ones that have duplicates. Let's take a look at the SQL for that first. And this was the one where we're using a group by. So we're selecting all of the country names and all of the counts of the country names. And we wanted it where the count of the country name is greater than 1. So if we look over here at the country names, where is there more than 1? Well, all of those ones that we just duplicated, but also a couple of others that we had out there. So when we ran it, it found them and it grouped them, and the grouping allows us to show the count. And we saw these are the 4 that had 2 entries. This one, because I accidentally added 2 more, might give a slightly different result, but it is a standard query, so we should be able to just run it from here. And we see those same 4 entries, different order. So that's kind of interesting. And the Canada 2 picked up 4 because of, again, those 2 extra over there. And where did you go? There, okay. Let's take a look at the SQL for that. Oh, I opened it wrong, sorry. Open SQL. Let's compare it to this SQL. There's your select and your count and giving it an alternate name. There's your from, your group by, your having. And here's your count. Because count is sort of a special word, I guess they decided it's better to have it capitalized. I did not capitalize it here. Probably it would make it more obvious if I capitalized it, but Access doesn't care if you upper or lowercase. Actually, SQL doesn't care if you upper or lowercase your keywords. But you can see it's basically doing the same thing. Access just threw a bunch of extra parentheses in there. Okay, so that's 11 of the 12. Let's go take a look at the last one. Close that. Don't need to save that. This one over here in design view. And number 12. Yeah, I can just run it and you can see what it looks like. So this is delete country ID, country name, country code, country ID from the country table where the country ID is 10. As I indicated earlier, the delete doesn't care about any of this. Access allows you to put stuff in there. Sometimes people put a star to say just delete all, sort of thinking it's delete all records because it doesn't make sense to delete all IDs. You're not really deleting IDs, you're deleting rows in the table. So when it comes to LibreOffice, as I mentioned, it does not want you to put anything between the delete and the from. If you try, it becomes an invalid command, as I'll demonstrate here. Go here. So let me put here first, I'll put a star. And when I view, let's see, I guess I don't have any data there. It's going to delete nothing, but let's go back here, try to run it. Yeah, so there are none that have an ID of 10, so it's not going to delete 10. Oh, that's why 10 was missing from the sequence. So I could probably change that and say, you know what, I want to delete. How about number 12? And I could do an in. So if I wanted, I could say maybe in 12, 13, 14. And view, and you can see that's what it's going to delete. So if I go run it, you're about to delete 3 rows. Yes. And now it shows those deleted. I'll do the same here, but I want to do one more thing before we get there. So in 12, 13, 14, and because I added 2 more, I'll delete those. But I want to put like a star over here. So you may have seen that I did use a star in the SQL here. And it worked. If I try to do that here, I get an error because, oops, well, first it should be probably with a space over there. So notice it's not happy with the star there. It says, I don't know what the star is because deletes don't use fields. So in this particular version, don't put anything there. Again, this is something where some versions allow it, some versions don't. This particular version does not allow it. When I execute, it successfully deleted 5 rows. And so if I come back here and refresh, the last 4 should be gone. And sure enough, they are. Okay, so that's sort of a whirlwind run of how things work in Access versus LibreOffice. The commands are very, very similar, but the way you apply them can be a little bit different. In LibreOffice, you do selects in queries, that's fine. You can do selects up here. So actually, let me demonstrate that too. That was, I think, number 11. So edit in SQL view. I will copy that entire thing, close it, go to Tools SQL, paste it. Probably want to show the output, execute. And you can see that works. So selects work, inserts, updates, and deletes all work from this window. But if you're building a query, if you want to run the query, it has to be a select. Can't be an insert, update, and delete. Whereas Access allows you to store all of those in what they call queries, but they're different types of queries. That concept doesn't really apply over here. Okay, I think that's probably enough for this. We'll maybe do a few more as we go, but I want to jump into the other half of things. Let's see, I do want to save the changes I made here. Close that, and let's close that for now. Okay, I want to take a look back at the recipe database. So you may or may not remember this, but I think it was on the first day of class, I was talking about how we had some recipes that were being built, and we threw them together and we kind of created this simple table of here's a bunch of recipes. I think I started with a text file and migrated it to an Excel spreadsheet where I then formatted it to create insert commands, and the insert commands were used to create this table with all of its data. And all of this had a lot of data, but it was really too much data. If you look, it's basically the entire recipe over there. And we realized that's not really practical for doing certain things, like if I want to find how many tablespoons of oil, find all the ones that use oil and how many tablespoons. It's not really practical for that. Or how many servings. It becomes hard to find it because this is just arbitrary text. So the next iteration was, let's take it out of there and migrate it to another table. And so this table had all of the different pieces, but we ended up with a challenge of there's like a whole collection of ingredients here and a whole collection of instructions and notes. And how do I connect all of those and yet treat them separately? So what I did is I created a sequence and said all of the ones with the same sequence are related to the same recipe. So if I say, go show me everything with sequence number 1, it's going to show all of those pieces, which in this case would be a collection of ingredients, a collection of instructions. By the way, this is not the ideal way to do this. I was talking earlier about normalizing your database. And the idea of normalizing your database is not having duplicate information, but it's also related to organizing it in a way where your data pieces connect well together. This doesn't connect well together because you have a lot of empty data in here. All of this is empty, will always be empty because you're not going to replicate the title over and over again. If I did, that would violate the rules of normalizing your database. So really, these other pieces, they belong in their own table. And these pieces belong in their own table. These belong in their own table. So what we probably should do is figure out how do we get those there. And I guess the first step is we'd want to go and create a lookup table that has those pieces. But before I get there, let's do a couple of things sort of related to, I guess, the aggregates I was talking about last week. And then we'll go take our break. and I'll prepare the database during the break to get it ready for afterwards. But suppose that I wanted to find out how many of these rows are there for each one of the recipes, because it does vary. If you scroll through, you'll see, yeah, this one only has a few in here. This one has maybe even fewer. At the top, there were a lot more. So how many rows are we talking about? Let's go quickly create. In design view, we'll use this table. Show me the sequence. And I guess also the title. And when I view, I see there's all of the ones for 1. There's all the 2s all the way down. That doesn't really tell me how many there are. So what I need to do is turn this into a totaling thing. And at which point I've now converted it into a group by. So the group by, again, is just taking things, grouping them together. So if I view, it's kind of weird how it shows up. It's not what you would expect. The reason for that is because I'm showing the title. The title is getting it confused. It's saying, well, the sequence sometimes has a space and sometimes it has a title. So I don't want this when I'm trying to do the group by. I'm not grouping titles, I'm grouping sequences. And so now I have those entries, but notice they're kind of duplicated. Anyway, I think that's just because this is here. Delete that. And now it's a little bit better. It's showing 17. Okay, so there's 17 entries, but how many are there? Well, I can add another sequence. And this time I will say, tell me what the count is of those. If we look at the SQL, show the sequence and the count of the sequence. And it does need an alias here because this is not a database field. This is a formula calculation. And so when I view, I can then see, okay, so recipe number 1 has 13 rows, recipe 2 has 14, and so forth all the way down. Let me save that. Query week 801. Recipe row counts. Okay, so when we come back from the break, I want to see about trying to transfer some of these things into a separate table, because again, most of these pieces are useless information. This has no value, no value. There's only going to be one title for a recipe, one description as defined by the way we did our database, but there will be multiple ingredients. So we need to figure out, how do we migrate the ingredients over to the other table? Okay, let's go take our 10-minute break. It's 7:02, so come back at 7:12 and we'll continue. Okay, so during the break, I did a couple of things to the database to basically get it ready for where I'd like the database to go. So you may remember I talked about this was the recipe database that we had, or the recipe table, and it's not organized very well. And what I wanted was to replace this with a new table called TBL recipe. And I want to migrate it over, but there are certain things that are not going to make it there. Instead, they're going to be maybe some kind of lookup pieces, and we'll figure out how to pull those pieces together to get what we need. So the goal is to maybe get everything into a recipe table. So I cleared out all the data, I kept the structure. I also added a couple of new fields in here. So let me, actually, I'll get to that in a moment. I added 3 new tables aside from recipes, so technically 4 tables. And the idea was anything that has multiple values here, I wanted to apply. So this one, even though it looks like there's multiple values, yes, no, 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 the no basically was sort of a null. It's like, yeah, is this vegan or not? Just because I changed it to no on the second entry of the recipe doesn't mean it's not. The first row is the one that has the valuable information. The rest should have been a null. So this one was yes, this one was yes. I think all the rest are no. So although it looks like there's multiple values here, technically there's one value plus a bunch of nulls. But when it comes to the ingredients, we do have a bunch of entries here. We want to migrate those to a new table. So I created a table for ingredients. And as part of that, let's go into the design. I could have done this multiple ways. Let me explain how I did it, and then I'll explain another way I could have done it. I wanted this to be connected to a specific recipe. So there has to be a recipe ID. That recipe ID is going to be a pointer back to the recipe table. So eventually a recipe will be in the recipe table. And if you want to see the ingredients, you go to the ingredient list and you find the corresponding recipe. And as part of the recipe ingredients, let's see this one over here. If you look, there's really 3 pieces of information in here, maybe 4. I decided we'll just worry about 3 at this point. One is the quantity of the piece that you're looking for. Actually, I guess the most important one is what is the ingredient itself, vegetable oil. But in order to use a recipe, you need to understand, well, how much of that am I going to put in? And usually the how much is broken into 2 parts, which is a quantity and a measurement. And so the measurement is tablespoons and the quantity is 2. So 2 tablespoons of vegetable oil is 3 pieces of information. On the next row down, it's garlic using cloves and 3 of those. But there's also an extra piece minced. So I'll kind of, for now, just keep that together as garlic minced. And by the way, trying to extract that information can be a little bit challenging. We could probably spend a lot of time trying to get it just right, but it might be easier for us to just say, let's see if we can find something that gets close enough and gets the job done for us. But I'm not sure we even have time for all of that. So I'll probably kind of shortcut it. But anyway, so we could have broken this down into a 4th piece, which is what is the organization of the item. So vegetable oil is just going to be vegetable oil, but garlic can come in different forms, like keep it as cloves or mince it or grind it or whatever. Likewise with the onions, this happens to be diced onions. This one is carrot. This becomes a bit of a challenge if you're trying to figure out, well, what is the measurement for carrot? It's 1 carrot, but is it a tablespoon, a clove, or a cup? It's like a 1 whole carrot, but the whole is implied. So again, trying to extract that information becomes a challenge of, well, when do I know that there's a measurement? When do I not? And I guess large is sort of the measurement for it. But then there's also extra stuff thrown at the end. Tomato paste. This one says optional. Not sure what you do with that. But so you can see there's a bunch of pieces in here, but primarily there's 3 aspects to it, which is what is the ingredient, what is the measurement, and how many of those measurements do you want? And if you look through, most of those have that. Grated Parmesan is maybe an exception, and parsley because, well, I guess the implication here is grate enough Parmesan that it looks good or feels good. So they're not actually using a measurement. They probably should. Fresh parsley, finely chopped. Well, how much? I guess enough to make it look good. So even this is not precise. Salt and pepper. How much salt and pepper? You know, a sprinkle or a gallon of salt and pepper. So anyway, there will be some interesting things related to that. But the ingredient table will allow us to store that information. And so I did allow all those parts in there. What is the ingredient name, the quantity, and the unit? Initially, we're just going to dump everything into here. We're going to leave the other 2 pieces empty. Again, primarily because we don't have time to try to figure out what's the best way to split those apart. If we had time in a future class, we would try to do that. I suspect we won't. I may decide to do it as a challenge and then explain to you how I did it, but we'll see if I have time for that. Okay, instructions, sort of the same idea when you look at the instructions. The difference is the instructions really come with just what should I do? But there are 3 things I should do. What order should I do them in? So it becomes important to know what is the sequence and what is the instruction. In this case, they actually did a whole collection of things in sequence number 1. Those probably could have been broken down into multiple parts, like heat the oil, add the onion, add garlic. but they kind of considered it sequence number 1. So I'll assume the same thing. So what do I need for my instruction table? I need to know what is the sequence and what is the instruction, and which recipe is it connected to. So this foreign key will jump back. And the last one is the notes. And the notes kind of follows the same thing as the instruction table, which is what's the sequence and what's the note. Okay, now that we have that, we have to figure out, well, how do we get those things over to the right places? So I'm going to take the approach of first, let's see if we can pull off the pieces from the rows that are the first entry of this grouping. How do we know what the first entry is? And then once we get that, how do we migrate it over to the recipe table? That's another challenge. And also, how do I get all of these pieces and put them in the right place? So we're going to have a bunch of challenges here. I'm thinking we may not be able to easily solve all of them, but I'll throw out the different ways that we can do that. Okay. Let's start by seeing if we can at least migrate the core parts of this, which is take all of these and get it over there, ignoring the ones where there's nothing in the title. So if we look through, really the ones that we care about are the ones that have a title. The ones that don't, they're really not a recipe, or they're a sub piece of the recipe. So let's go and create a query that will do that for us. So we go to query design, we go to the original recipe table, and we say, go show me all of the parts, but only where there is a title. In other words, is not null. And if I view, I see 17 entries. I can see 17 here. There is a sequence here that matches that, so that's good. I probably don't really need that moving forward because the ID of the recipe will handle that automatically, but I'll keep it in. And we'll see that it might have a benefit once we start trying to migrate the ingredient stuff back into this. And even if it's in there, it doesn't really matter if you don't need it. When you're querying, you just leave it out. Okay, now that I have that, let me go ahead and save that. Query week 802. And recipe, title, etc. All right, now that we have that, we want to be able to migrate that over to this table. Okay, well, how can I do that? Well, let's go over to the create, and we'll create a query. And we're going to be querying the things from our query that we just created. So this one. And so if we look, we see there's all the pieces, and yeah, exactly what I just saw. But what I want to do now is turn this query into an append query. You may remember we did that previously. And when we click here, it says, what table do you want to append these things to? I want to append it to the recipe table. Click OK. And how do we connect all the parts? Well, let's see what the SQL looks like for this at this point. Insert into the recipe table. That's good. That's the destination. Where do I get the data from? Select it from the query that I just created, all fields from that table. Is that going to work? In this case, yes, because the way I structured this table is it has the same information. Oh, I forgot to tell you about a couple of other things here. But I structured it the same as that. So if you look at these two, there's really no difference in them. I mean, if you look as I'm jumping back and forth, there's no changes. So they are the same structure. I just did a copy of the table and said, go make a copy with a new name and don't bring the data over. Then if you're interested in how I did that, I basically said right-click, copy, right-click, paste, and it said, okay, what's the name of your new table? I want structure only, don't bring over the data. I changed the name of it and I clicked OK. It built it for me. I didn't check to see if it did the relationships. I'll quickly talk about this because I mentioned it once before that sometimes when you look here, not all the pieces seem to be there. So there's the original recipe, and I did add a couple of fields here, but looks like it did bring in the other recipe table. And so it did connect all of the relationships. And let me explain what the relationships are. But anyway, before I get there, sometimes it will not show all the parts, like, well, where's this other table? So you can say, go show table. And for example, show me this one. And if there's a relationship, you can connect it. Let me hide that table. But sometimes for some reason, it can't find the tables. If you click on all relationships, it will add the extra missing pieces. Okay, let's see what these relationships are. You can probably kind of guess by looking at this. Let's go here. Yeah, that's a big one. Let's push this to the side for now. So I have this and I have this. Not sure why. Oh, there it is. It's hidden down here. Maybe if I go to this side. Yeah, so, okay, so what is this? Why are the pieces like this? Let's reorganize so they make more sense. They're a little different between this one and this one. So the idea here is we have a list of ingredients sitting in the old recipe table, and I want to be able to migrate them over to here, to the ingredients table. And eventually the thought was I would use this. So I created a new field called ingredients 2. And the idea being that I would have this be a lookup. I think I actually abandoned that, so it's not quite the direction we're going to go. But that was my original thought. I wanted to be a lookup, so for a particular recipe, you can say what an ingredient is, but then you have to create a second entry and another ingredient and a third entry for that same recipe and a third ingredient. So it's not quite the way I want to go with this, but this one is more accurate, which is the ingredient field. Actually, those don't even need to be there. But instead, the ingredient table is connecting back to the recipe table. So if you want to know the ingredients, you start with the recipe and you query the ingredient table and say, go give me a list of all of the ingredients for a particular recipe, rather than go to the recipe table and say, go show me an ingredient and then another ingredient and another ingredient. So really, if you ignore this, these 4 over here are the correct relationship. Unfortunately, this is the relationship we have right now. So we want to figure out how do we migrate that across? And part of it is, let's get the primary piece over first. So those 17 entries, get them in here. Then we're going to go and take all of the extra pieces and migrate them into here. And then we'll figure out how do we connect those parts back. That's my goal for today. Let's see if we can get that done. All right, let me save that. Okay, we did create a query that looks like it's going to try to insert the pieces, those 17 pieces, into that table. In order for that to work, these two have to have the same structure. So that's what I was getting at here. They do have the same structure because I just did a copy and I accidentally closed that. That's fine. But they do have the same structure. So because of that, this should work okay. But if I didn't want to use the star, instead I could use specific pieces and say, okay, let me use, I probably don't need to bring the ID over. Let me bring the sequence. Actually, I'll do it one at a time. And because the names are going to be the same, it will find all the parts. Here's the title connected to the title. The description will be appended to the description. And so I can just keep doing the same for each of these. The state created is actually in the recipe. So just add all of those parts. Is it creating them? Calories, marinate time, prep time, cook, vegan, that. Hoping they're all going over. What happened over here? Okay. There are no ingredients to because I just created a field, didn't put any data in. Ingredient type, instruction. There is no instruction to because I just created the field. Nutrition facts, notes, and there is no notes to. What happened to title? Why are there two titles here? Not sure. Let's take a quick view of our data. Looks like I wanted to match what's here. Sorry, not that one. What's here? So I need to get the sequence. Sorry, I'm getting lost as to where my parts are at this point. This is the 17. I'm trying to do an insert. Something is missing. Where is my insert? Okay, I guess it's this. You're not happy because I opened that in design view. Great. I think I have too many pieces going on here. Let me close a couple. Let's go back to this. Okay, so the idea is I am going to insert into the recipe table each one of these pieces. Notice some of them have brackets around them. If you remember, the brackets are qualifiers, and a qualifier is sort of like quotes. And so it basically says this thing, even though it has a special character in here, is a single field. Ignore the space. Don't treat it as a separator. It's part of the field name. And likewise over here, vegan question mark is not a valid field character typically. So it says, well, if you're going to use that, it has to be treated in a special way. So I'm going to throw brackets around it. So that's why you have brackets around some of them. Things like ingredient, no special characters in there, so you don't need the brackets around it. And where am I going to get the data from that? I'm going to go over to the other query, which is pulling from that other table and grabbing it and bringing it over. All right, hopefully that's good. Let me save that. So query 803, insert recipe, I'll call it recipe title, etc. Okay, let's see if when I run, I get 17 entries. That looks good. I'll say yes. Go to the recipe table, refresh. What are you complaining about? Table instruction? Okay. I don't care that it's in design view. Yeah, some of the challenges of access. Okay, so brought over all of the pieces. We got the sequence number. And in this case, the IDs happen to match because they were just, it was a new table. So the first one became a 1, the second became a 2, etc. So that's good. Then we got the titles. Then we got the type of dish it is. It's a soup dish or a pasta dish, the author, etc., all the way across. And then we got down to ingredients, and ingredients basically don't need to be there. Ingredients 2 is ignored. We'll need to clear these at some point because that's really going to be useless information. If we want that information, we will go to the ingredients table. But next, we will need to populate the ingredients table. Likewise with the instructions, not all of them had an ingredient type, but instructions will be the same. That's going to eventually go away. And likewise with the notes. Oh, nutrition facts. Did I miss nutrition facts in here? Let me check real quick. If it's just one field, it's okay. I may have missed that. We may have to do an additional piece. Not there. Let's go to nutrition facts here. Let's see, number 6. Yeah, it looks like we need nutrition facts. I don't want to spend time right now doing this. I'll update this later, but I will create another table for nutrition facts to manage that additional data. Let's see if we can get some of these going first. We're starting to run short on time. I want to make sure we get this going. Okay, so where are we again? Let's do a quick look back at our relationship. We have this data over here. We migrated the first entry over here. So this has the recipe information. This has the ingredients, the instructions, etc. We could try to figure out how to migrate through to get that information, but that's not the right way to do it. What we really want is to make this table obsolete. In order to do that, we have to migrate all of the data. We migrated the recipe. Now we need to migrate the ingredients, the instructions, and the notes. As part of that, we're going to have one extra challenge of, if we put all the ingredients in here, how do we know where they're connected to? And the answer is going to be they are connected to this recipe, which happens to have the right ID in both the ID and the sequence. We could kind of shortcut it, but technically we want it to match the sequence. I think for limited time, we'll actually just make it so that because we know the ID and the sequence are the same, the relationship's already there, we'll leave it. Let's see if we can migrate all of the instructions over to here and connect it to the proper recipe. Let's go create a query. That's going to go to the original, actually, because it's going to be an insert, we'll do it in 2 steps. Okay, I want to take from the original. I want to show the sequence. That's going to be important. I want to show the ingredients. When I view, I now have all of these are for recipe number 1. All of these are for recipe number 2, etc. Let's go save this as query 8. Guess we are on 04. And this is ingredients. Okay, good enough. How do we get this over to the ingredients table? Well, we go create a query. And we say, I want to use the ingredients table. I want to put something in there. And I want to turn this into an append. So I want to make it an insert. Where am I coming from? I'm coming from the recipe table. So I want it to be from a query. Does it let me do a query here? No, interesting. Okay. Oh, did I get this backwards? Yeah, sorry. I want to append to the ingredient table. Let me throw this away and start over again. I usually just jump straight into SQL to do this, so to me it's a little more confusing here. But I want to start from my query. That's why the query wasn't available. Start from my ingredients for the query. And I want to append to the ingredient table. Click OK. Use the sequence. Use this. Where does the sequence go? Where does the ingredient go? I want the sequence to go to, in this case, the recipe ID. And in the ingredients, we'll go to the ingredient's name. Let's take a look at the SQL for this. And we didn't look at the SQL for this, but this should be pretty obvious at this point. It's just select a sequence and ingredients from the recipe table. the old recipe table. And here, I want to go insert into the recipe ID and the ingredient name. The sequence and the ingredients. Yes, so this is a foreign key. So because it's a foreign key, that will work. And the ingredients. When I run this, it should insert a whole group of those things. Let's see, looking at this, it basically should take all of my ingredients and try to migrate them over. I forgot there are some ingredients that are null. Before I do that query, I should probably make sure that I don't have nulls. Let's do a quick view. And when I look, I do see the nulls. So I want to remove the nulls because the null was basically a row that did not have an ingredient in it. So I don't need that in my table. So looking through, you'll see there are a few others like that, some that have a bunch. So we don't want those in our new ingredients table. So let's go back and say where the ingredient is not null. And if we go look here, it just adds a where clause. So it's doing a select these things and then insert them. Let's go do another preview. At this point, we should not have any nulls. There should probably be entries for each of the 17 entries. And let's go and run this. Actually, let me save it first. Query 805. Insert ingredients. Come back out, run it. 170 entries. That's obviously more than the 17. I click OK. Let's take a look at our ingredient table. Refresh that. Again, we're not going to deal with the quantity and units at this point. That would take a little too much time to try to figure out how do I parse through this and grab just the right information. I'd probably do something like, since I see that they all start with a star except some of them. Yeah, that would be rather complicated, but go check to see if there's a star, and if there's a star, then ignore the first character. Then go trim off any extra spaces you may have. Then go find the next space, and then that's going to be your number. And it could be 1/4, it could be a 2, it could be a 2 to 3 garlic cloves. And it could be a nothing in there. That could be a problem. So we'd have to figure out if it's a number, ignore them. If it's not a number, ignore that and just leave it as a 0. So again, this would get rather complicated. It might be easier to just say, go migrate everything, and then we'll go manually clean up things. But okay, let's go leave it at that. We did get our data in here. We got 170 entries, and notice the recipe ID, because of the way I did the lookup when I created the field. I'll show you that right now just so you can see how that works. I went over here. I said, go do the lookup wizard. Okay, I'll do it over here. Go do the lookup wizard. Go connect over to the recipe table. Go show the title, which will automatically bring the ID also. I want to sort by the title. Go next. And there's the data that's going to show up, and it's going to be sorted. Maybe that's not the best way. Maybe it should be done by sequence, but it seemed like title made sense. And then when I clicked finish, it created this over here. Don't need that. Escape. Can you let me escape? No. Can I delete this row? Okay. So anyway, then it put the information in the lookup over here. Save, yes. Okay. So we now have that. Again, the quantities are not there. We'd have to figure out how to migrate that over. But this has easy lentil potato soup because that connected to entry number 1 of this table, which was entry number 1 and number 2 and so forth. So it found all of those parts. Let's go back over to this. Sorry, I have too many pieces open at this point. Let's close a few of these. Here's that. And that's the insert, which we ran. Yes, save that. And so what we ended up with was the ingredient table is now populated. So you can see how we did that in 2 separate steps. I'd like to see if we can do that in 1 step with the next one, with the instructions. So the goal here is to populate the instruction data from the old recipe data. So let's go create, query in design view, the old recipe. I will still need the sequence. And we're doing instructions. And so if I view, we see that, yeah, we want to remove the nulls again. So let's go and take out the nulls. Is not null. This one we get 98 entries. We know what the corresponding recipe is by the sequence number. We look over here. Right now, it's just a select, selecting the sequence, the instructions, the recipe, where that's not null. And what we want to do this time, I want to take it 1 step beyond because there's no guarantee, looking back at the original here, there's no guarantee that these are going to be the same. So if we had to migrate these in the future, or if for some reason the IDs did not match, how do I get them synchronized, right? Well, really what I want is to find the sequence, not the ID. So to do that, I need to combine this with the recipe table and match the sequences. Because when I created the recipe table, I did migrate the sequence to the sequence. So when we look over here, all we've done is we've created an inner join. So you might remember that, connecting these 2 tables where the sequences match. Normally you do it on the primary keys, or a primary key and a foreign key, but this time that's not what I wanted. I wanted to match the sequences and then show the sequence and the instructions, but also skip the nulls. We go look, and we still get the same 98, but this time we're actually connecting to the correct sequence. This time, let's go convert that into, let's see, how do I get this back? Go out to design view. I want to turn this into an append, and I want the append to go to the recipe table. No, the instruction table. And what are the parts that I'm matching up? Well, you might say that I want to match up the sequence here, but really that's not quite what I want. What I want is to, I guess, use the ID. Actually, I think this might be okay. So I want to match the sequence, and the instruction will be the instruction text. Yeah, let's go back to the instruction table for a moment. So there's a sequence and the instruction text. So the sequence has to be populated. And that's its own sequence. So that's going to be a little confusing. Let's go back to the original table here. So that's the sequence over here. This is 1, 2, 3. And because those, Well, they don't exactly match either. This would end up being a problem if I tried to figure out the sequence. So for now, I'm going to ignore that sequence field. So that is actually a bit of a problem in our query right now because it thinks it's going to go in the sequence field. That's not where it's going. It just happened to have the same name. That's not the right place for it. This should go into the recipe ID. Okay, we preview and we see 111, 22222, etc., all the way down through all 17. Let's go save our query. This is query week 8. Oh, I think we're on 06. Instructions. If I got it wrong, I'll change it. Oh, yeah. Okay, 06. And that is an append. Let's go run it. 98 entries. Good. Let's go to instruction table, refresh. There they are. Again, this sequence is supposed to be the first digit from here, but the instructions are now over here. They have their own ID and the recipes correctly matched up. One more to go. Let's do it on the notes table. It should be exactly the same, except using notes. So save that, yes. Let's get rid of the relationship, save that, yes. In case you didn't see the SQL in here, insert into those two fields, selecting the sequence goes to the recipe, the instructions goes to the instruction text. Okay, last one. Let's go create. Pulling from the original recipe table, I want to see the sequence, the notes, and view. Remove all nulls. Is not null. Again, you should see something like this. So this is the actual sequence that matches the new recipe ID. View, we see these are the notes for this. Let's go back. I want to append to the note table. Click OK. That's not the right field. I will update it to recipe ID, and the notes goes to the note text. SQL is recipe ID, and the note text will come from the SQL, the sequence, and the notes. By the way, these don't have to be in that order. And just to confirm that, let's go back here, and because the note table has sequence and notes, notes and sequence, it will still work the same. And by the way, that's actually not the right sequence. It's the note and the sequence from the old data, the old recipe table. So we see those over here. Apparently there were no notes on number 2. Is that right? No notes on entry number 2. So this one. Look at that. Okay, so a few of them had no notes, so that's okay. All right, let's go ahead and save this one. Query 807. Notes, this should have actually been insert. Yeah, I should have probably put underscores in there to make them more readable. Let me go update this real quick. This is an insert. Rename that. Rename that. This only works if they're closed. This one, let's go view, let's go run. 20 entries. Okay. They should all now be in here. We refresh. We do see the notes. We do see that it's connected to this. let's see if we can create a query that will show us the recipes from the new recipe table, this one, and show their corresponding, let's say, ingredients. Now that we've migrated the data over, let's actually go build something connected to where we want things to be. Let's go create a new query from the new recipe table, but I want it to connect to the instruction table also. And notice the ID of the recipe table is connected to recipe ID. I don't think that's exactly what we want. Let's see. Yeah, maybe it is. So we're actually showing the instructions and the corresponding recipes. Yeah, it just looks a little backwards. And I'll probably update that to recipe ID afterwards. Let's go take a look. Oh, yeah, I need to actually show something. So let's show the instruction text and the title, but maybe in reverse order. And we go view and we see, I think I said I was going to do ingredients, but I did instructions instead. So we see that this recipe has 3 different instructions. This one has 5 instructions and so forth all the way down. It may seem like we actually kind of went in the wrong direction with this, because if you compare it to this one, the original table, it skipped entries over here where you didn't need it. But the nice thing is, this is actually showing the correct information. Let me actually extend it to show the original sequence, the recipe sequence. So it's recipe number 1 was this, and this was an instruction, this was an instruction, this was an instruction. And what we want with this is to take this data and send it over to a report. So I see we have 3 more minutes. Afterwards, I'll maybe take it and migrate some of the other things, or maybe I'll leave it up to you to figure out how to migrate some of the other pieces. But just to kind of show you an access feature, let me save this as query 808 recipe ingredients. So the next thing would be, now that I have this, I want to turn this into a, I'm just trying to find it over here. It's not an insert. It should be down here somewhere. Turn this into a report. So we then go create a report based on this. And what we see is, here's the sequence, here's the title, here's the instruction number 1, number 2, number 3. We probably want to hide these 2 pieces of information. This is just the recipe number. Maybe we don't even need that at all. But what we can do is go into, let's go into design view. I think we're ready, and you know, we can just go to the properties. So there's something in there of, forget where it is, but it's something where you can basically say, hide if there's duplicate information. If I don't see it right away, I'll have to go find it somewhere. It's been a while since I've done reports with this. Yeah, I think I usually go in from this perspective, and I say, for this, I think what you want to do is actually create an additional level of reporting. There are 2 ways to do it. One is create a separate level. And so I can go here and say, go add a sorting and grouping. And I want to add a group for the title. And then basically take the sequence and move it into, you're not going to let me do that directly. Okay. Do it like that. Do it like that. Paste it into here. Line it up so it looks nice. And save this as a report for recipe ingredients. And then go into print preview. And they don't seem to be sorted at all. So let me go back in, close the print preview, add a sort on the sequence. Let's see if I got that right. Print preview. Oh, it's not the sequence. Sorry. It's something like that. You can see anyway how the pieces are now grouped together. I'm not sure why the ones are not floating to the top. I think I need to create a separate sorting level for that. Let's see if I can go back real quick. Let's go create one more sorting level. Add a sort by sequence and move that one up. This one down. I guess I have two sorts, so I don't actually need the second one. See if that works. Okay, yeah, so that's a little bit better. So for sequence number one, this recipe, you have these things. So all it did is it pulled from this query, which looks like it's got too much information, but it's really just a reference. This is pulling from a merged group of two tables, if you remember, just two tables, and then throwing it into a report like this. Again, there's another way where I can actually migrate these pieces down and just say hide if there are duplicates. Oh, we need to also redo these. I'll leave that for another time. So next week, I want to see if we can wrap this up. I realize I didn't get into some of these other ones. I do want to do this. We'll get back to our other database. I want to show you how to fill in. If you remember, we were missing some states in the city table. Originally, it was just a state code. And then we added a state table. We wanted to merge them together. And I want to be able to migrate the data, a reference to the primary key of the state back into the city table. Because I already know what the state is, I have to jump over to the state table, go grab the ID, bring it back, and insert it. Technically, it's an update. We'll see how that works. And we'll also take a look at these other things next week. And we'll also do a little introduction to Access VBA. I hope that was somewhat useful today. We did play with a lot of different things. You can kind of see how some of these all work. So I'll upload all of these. And as one of the exercises, I'll ask you to see if you can create reports for the other parts. All right, thanks everybody, and have a good evening. See you next week.
Thank you and see you next